I'm Gabe Lullo, and welcome to the Do Hard Things podcast. We're talking to go-to-market leaders and entrepreneurs who have conquered the challenges, the hustle, and the grind. Get ready for real talk, real insights, and no fluff.
But the hardest thing in the world right now is not actually closing deals, it's actually getting somebody's attention.
If you don't have that hook in that first 5 to 10 seconds, guess what? They're going to scroll to the next one.
You need to go in and you need to make it sound like yourself. That's the biggest piece of the puzzle. And I promise you, we can all tell.
The people that are trolls and the people that are haters never done the thing that you're doing.
I love doing this podcast because I get a front row seat to some of the greatest minds in sales.
Gone are the days of saying stay in your lane. When you're an executive leader and you're an enterprise-wide leader, there are no lanes. You've got to be partners.
Curiosity is like when the type of questions you ask is sometimes the value that you bring.
I need you to tell me when you're ready to buy or what you're ready to do. And I think it's changed so much into like adding more value. And if you're not doing that, then you're definitely going to come off as desperate.
High pressure selling is like a dinosaur tactic at this point.
No parent is like, oh, you should be a salesperson when you grow up, right? Everyone's like a doctor, lawyer, whatever crap. It's never salespeople.
It's not your job to motivate people. It's your job to find motivated people.
It's not cockiness. It's not arrogance. It's confidence knowing I know this and I know that I can help you.
From where I started to where I am today is all because I learned how to sell.
And there's too many people who have only been doing this for 5 freaking minutes. Sit down, close your mouth, actually go out there and get yourself beat up. Then come back and tell me if something is dead or not.
That is exactly why I started this podcast, because right there, that's the epitome of doing hard things.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Do Hard Things podcast. I'm your co-host, Gabe Lullo, along with Lexi Graham, and we're super excited to be back. And all of our audience members are going to love this one because we're going to be talking about the wine business. And we're going to be talking about sales, which I know many of you love and do every day. And we're here with Devan Felano, who is actually a seasoned leader in the beverage industry. She works at Treasure Wine Estates, and she has over 17 years of experience in sales growth, managing key accounts, optimizing market strategies. She's also a working mom and has successfully navigated that and thrived in a male-dominated industry. Devan is also known for her resilience and willingness to take risks. Her leadership, and I know this personally, is really about collaboration and connecting with people. We actually connected ourselves on LinkedIn is how we met. She has accountability, exceptional results over the last 17 years. She's driven for her companies. And she really is a trailblazer in the wine and spirits world. And also, like I said, in a male-dominated world. So welcome to the show, Devan. We're excited that you're here.
Yes, thanks so much for that nice introduction. Happy to be here. And again, just grateful to be here, and thanks for having me.
Of course. Well, I got to get into this because, I always ask our guests what their origin story is. And as you know, the premise of our podcast, Do Hard Things, is really about, ways that people who may not have gone to school for what they currently do, and most people in sales don't go to school for sales, find themselves successful, yet maybe it wasn't something that, was predetermined. And so I really love to hear just a quick origin story of how you got passionate and excited about, being a trailblazer for the last 17 years in the sales world, especially in a male-dominated sales world like the beverage industry is. So take us through that.
Sure. No, I love to start here. I think it's a great question. So I would just say this. I think, starting kind of at a very high level and then getting a little more granular and personal is follow your curiosity, right? I think that there's so much pressure on young adults today. Like, I need to, go to college and as a freshman know exactly what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. It has to be all planned out. I can't mess any of this up. And I just don't think that that's true, right? So follow your curiosity, right? So, my major was psychology and then my minor was business kind of marketing. But with that, right, you think about psychology, right? You learn so much about how people work, what makes them tick, right? What motivates them, what inspires them, like what are some challenges people face, right? And then you think business and marketing. Well, those two together, that's sales right there. Sales is all about people, right? So like I kind of had that in the back of my head as I'm like studying in school. But I think the tipping point for me was I studied abroad in Ireland for 6 months in Galway. Amazing experience. Recommended to our college folks. You can pull it off. It was so cool. And something that stuck with me was just the way that the culture overall in Europe, but especially in Ireland, was so celebratory. Like they celebrated the littlest things about life. You'd see a sign on a little shop that says, closed at 5, home for dinner. And the guy'd be walking there with flowers and wine because it's a Tuesday night and he's having dinner with his family. And I'm like blown away. That's so against sort of our American hustle culture. And I was like, I love how they celebrate life. I love how they come together over a dinner table. And often there is wine and the way that it connects everyone and kind of brings this kind of romanticize your life aspect to the mundane. So that kind of had me thinking. But so those were kind of in the back of my head. But I think what really happened was when I graduated college, I got a shout out of my dad. He was like, listen, we covered undergrad. If you want to do anything else, it's on you. But I think that was really good feedback. So I'm like, ooh, I mean, think about it. Graduate school, becoming a doctor, however you want to, law school, that's a massive investment financially, time. And I was like, ooh, I don't know if I love it psychology enough to study for another 8 years and be a psychiatrist. So let me just try this work thing. Let me like try working and see. And I really recommend that to folks. So that's what I did. I jumped into the workforce. And again, it's like following that curiosity. So what I noticed was a massive distributor for wine and spirits was just opening up this huge facility right in my hometown. And they were hiring all kinds of jobs. And it was literally customer service rep. I think it was like temp. I wasn't even like on their books. I was paid hourly. You could say that's like below me, right? But I'm like, listen, follow that curiosity. Like, okay, wine really interests me. This industry interests me. Here's a massive opportunity. Throw yourself into it and figure it out from there. Just because you start at customer service doesn't mean you need to stay there. But I think that kind of willingness to sort of start at the bottom because it's on the path you'd like to start to take, right? It's kind of like following those breadcrumbs. So that's what I did. And kind of the rest was history, be willing to learn and work hard. And I didn't stay there long, but that's where I started. And it got me in the door to like a huge, huge company. So hopefully I answered that.
You totally did. You nailed it.
Bit.
Absolutely.
Went around the block a bit, but
No, it's funny because I
Yeah.
think the same thing. Like I always say, like, if I went back to school, what would you do? Right. I was asked that a long time ago. And I was like, you know what? I would go to school for psychology. The sales, to your point, is just understanding why people do what they do, why people think the way they think. And really, as a salesperson, it's all about influence. Right. I think it was John Maxwell that wrote in his book, The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. And he said, leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. And our job as salespeople is to influence people to get them to do what we want them to do, right? Which is hopefully buy from us. And the better you are at understanding yourself, self-awareness, better are understanding other people. I mean, that's the name of the game. And so I couldn't agree with that more and kind of jealous you did that. And it makes sense. It really lines up. So awesome, awesome story. I know Lexi's chomping at the bit because, when I was saying in your bio, like a male driven industry, Lexi is in this space and our business over here and she's crushing it. Lex, what questions do you have?
Yeah. So like Gabe mentioned, in a male-dominated industry, you definitely have to overcome a lot of challenges along the way. So how do you think your unique perspective shaped your style and approach to driving success in your industry?
yeah, great question. So I think I'll start with this. When I first joined, and the company will remain nameless, but you guys can do the homework. There's not too many of them, but I noticed that. So I had all male bosses when I was at that massive distributor. I had 3 different roles over the course of 3 years, and it was all male bosses, all men in leadership. And I'm kind of looking around. I'm like, okay, and like literally there were no women in any senior roles at this massive company with hundreds and hundreds of employees. And I'm like, so then it's almost like I had like a second angle to this. Now I'm like, okay, this is like my new rally cry. Like I'm very like achievement oriented. Like I love a good challenge. I'm like, I want to be that woman. Like how come there's no one in leadership? From field sales managers to brand managers, you name it, no one in this company is female. We have like admins and maybe a couple sales reps that are women. That's it. So that kind of became my rally cry, and it just got me really interested. So I think when I guess what I could say is that it's okay if you look around and there's no one else like you. It's okay to be the first. Like, don't let that stop you. To me, that was inspiring. That was kind of my like fire in my belly, right? And you can learn from everyone. I've had some amazing male bosses. I've had some not so great ones, but you know what? I learned from both. I learned how not to be sometimes from the bad ones, right? Which can be compelling too. Um, yeah, so I'd say that, and then I just say you do need to have, thick skin, but a lot of folks do. That's not hard in today's world, right? The other thing is, you do need to kind of prove yourself a little bit, and that's okay too. There's nothing wrong with these kind of garner you for greatness. Like I was always the most prepared in the room. I had to be able to take maybe a joke that was a little offensive or a tone that was a little harsh. You just kind of learn to adapt, and it kind of makes you a better overall industry leader because no one had kid gloves on with me, like it was kind of I was thrown in the deep end, but again, not all bad. I mean, you can learn some really great skills that way. Um, so yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, for sure. So I guess
One Oh, sorry. But I'll just say one other piece is that now that I am as soon as I got to a place of leadership in this industry, I did not take that lightly. Not that I'm like so important and oh my gosh, this high and mighty person. I took it as this role is really serious. Like I need to take this seriously because now I have an impact to influence other women to do it differently, to do it, my way, to course correct some of the challenges that I saw that aren't okay. So now, that's been really cool too, is that now I get to sort of set the tone and sort of be that role model that I wish I had at that early age in my career.
Totally agree. That's awesome.
So you're in our business with Lexi and I, she and I are running a sales development agency where it's more transactional conversations, right? It's quality, but it's a lot of conversations that we're trying to get leads. Your world, it's more relationship building, right? You're
Yeah.
doing your own prospecting, but you own that customer through the entire journey from the life cycle until they become one, and then all the way post in your industry, right? So you are prospector, you are a seller, and you are client success manager, all rolled into one. SaaS and tech companies have those roles highly separated, and essentially an assembly line of people on the sales journey. But in your world, really the buck stops with you and building those relationships and fostering relationships. I would say is paramount. Is that accurate?
Absolutely. It's a relationship industry. I like to even say it's a people industry first. I'm in the people industry, and then
Right.
the commodity that I'm selling happens to be wine, but fill in the blank. Could be
Yeah.
anything. People
Exactly.
first, always. It's always people first.
Perfect. So here's my question. Can you share with us some effective strategies, right, that you're using right now and you use maybe some ones that were bad or good and then you've learned from to help build those strong, collaborative relationships with partners, right, to create those results that has it's proven to be successful for you.
Yeah. So love this question, and so I'll break it down in two ways. So really, I have like two customers that I kind of need to sell to. My first line of customer is really my distributor partner. Okay. And without getting super down the rabbit hole of how this whole industry works, not that it's complicated, but we're essentially a three-tier system, right? So before prohibition, things were really wonky in the alcohol space. And even during prohibition, that's kind of where the mob was created from. So things got even wonkier. But essentially, if I'm the person that makes wine, spirits, whiskey, whatever, I cannot directly put it on a truck, bring it to your store, and make you buy it. There's not a check and balances there. It kind of invites bad behavior. So what we do is I'm the supplier, right? Treasury's a supplier. We make the wine, we produce it. So we then have to have our distributors buy it all from us, and they are the middle people. They drive the trucks, they deliver the goods, they write the orders in their tablets. It's really on them. Once the product leaves our warehouse and joins theirs, they own it. Okay. And then they sell it directly. However, with all that being said, it's still important for me to present, kind of get the buy in, talk about the products. I'm still selling in that aspect, but I'm not directly delivering it. So I say all that because the first line of defense here is my distributor partner. I need to sell to them first. If they don't believe in this product, this concept, this thing we're trying to do, it's never going to go anywhere. Not to water it down too much, but you're kind of only as successful as your worst distributor partner. It truly. And I don't take that lightly. And because I started my career on the distributor side, I really understand the nuts and bolts of it. I've been there. I get it. No one wants to deal with some fancy pants supplier that's ruling from an ivory tower, just barking orders at you. It's ineffective. It's, offensive. So my biggest thing is get their buy-in first. And how I do that is get to know these people, get in front of them personally. Now, I know COVID aside, that was tough, but we're kind of out of that. So and even as granular as like I get in the car with these sales reps, like I work with them personally. I get to know them. I ask them questions. Like I take them to lunch. We're in the people industry first. So I build that sort of trust and rapport with my distributor team. And then I'm there with them selling so I can kind of show them how I would tackle it. I'll even do the pitch, not to take over, of course, but don't be that person that just like tells someone what to do that's never done it yourself, never succeeded at it, never tried it. And then in doing that too, I get to see real life, real time. What are some real challenges happening here, right? And what are things that are going really well that I need to shout from the rooftops to my company? So you have to really get in the field with your people. Have them understand that you are there as a coach, a mentor, an ally, and be, now that I'm in a leadership role, I have a corporate card, use it, take them to lunch, take them to it, like get them a drink, like be a human. And it goes a long way. People really appreciate that. So I would say that's definitely first. And in building that sort of symbiotic relationship, and we have this strong partnership. Now, when stuff really hits the fan and maybe we're under the gun and we've got a number to chase, and I can pick up the phone and make a call and they can get it done for me. But that's not the way I lead. That's not my first step of defense,
Yeah, for sure. No, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, definitely. And I know you're obviously really focused on driving that success through those strategic partnerships. And I would love to know, do you see that approach being the long-term revenue growth, or do you think there will be shifts? And just as you mentioned, more shifts to going in person and all of that. Love to hear your thoughts there.
Yeah, I think that we're always in a world in the beverage space, we're always going to need to have suppliers and distributors, and obviously customers, people that sell it. Now, how those things may change, it could be very, very fluid. I think about even like automation and AI. I mean, we might come to a world where the trucks driving my wine cases are, automated. There isn't a truck driver.
Right.
I sadly, I see this happening, but I don't know how it's going to shake out. But I could see a place where even like picture your favorite store where you buy, if you guys, drink alcohol, where you buy it, right? Picture that store. There'd be an automated kind of like inventory process. So I'd walk in, or my distributor rep would walk in and they'd be like, this is exactly what I need down to the bottle and the SKU. There's no, now of course you could maybe show something new, or can I encourage you to buy more because it's going off deal? But like they would come to you with what they want instead of the other way around. You walk the store and say, oh, you're low on this, or you have a gap in this space. So I think there's going to be a lot of automation, which and probably AI will play a piece too. I don't know how exactly. We joke that we hope that, with the nuance of wine sales, and it is so, you have to kind of like know your stuff, but really be good with people. I don't know how well like, a robot can just like learn that and do that. Not to say that they couldn't. I'd be so impressed if there's this like savvy wine robot doing stuff, but I don't see that happening like tomorrow, but it could. I mean, it definitely could. So these are all things we kind of have to navigate. But I think it is such a connection kind of presentation. You need to try it. You need to experience it with all your senses. That element of the wine industry in the space that I'm in, I do think that kind of needs to have a human element. So I think I'll have job security for a little bit longer.
And I have a follow-up coming from that.
Yeah, sure.
Are you currently using any AI, or is the industry currently using AI, or is it not there yet?
We're not there yet in terms of like my day-to-day and my distributors day-to-day. Not to say that, my company is global. We're in 70 countries, 70 brands. I can't speak to my larger company on what they're doing. I'm sure that there's elements where they are using it, So yeah, it'll be really interesting to kind of see how that changes the industry. Where you're able to potentially buy wine and spirits may definitely change. And what else you could buy in those places might be different too. I see a lot of things maybe changing there. I think that we might even be in a place where like cannabis kind of items are sold with spirits and wine and maybe non-elk. So zero proof is all sold together. Like this whole like everything's pigeonholed is a little bit draconian. A lot of other states are much more, go to the grocery store and you can kind of buy everything there. Not to say that, that's always a win, but New York is really unique in that sense that it's so split off
Right.
with where
So
this hitting purchase. Yeah.
building these relationships and really fostering, and understanding people, it's like I said, do hard things, right? It's hard work. How do you balance that, right? Because you said you're a working mom, you obviously have, personal priorities, your business, and you're on the road a lot. So in sales, it's almost consuming. Like for me, for example, I love what I do. I love working, but it's almost to the point where I feel like I'm constantly working. So I had to figure out ways, when my daughter was born 12 years ago, how do I balance this? And how am I present for the people who are important to me, who I'm working for, right? So
Yep.
how do you align to that? And more importantly, how do you structure maybe it is your day or your year? Because there's a lot of people listening right now that are in that sales entry level sales role trying to be you one day. And they want to get it right and they're going to learn from you. Like you said before, you're really a beacon for entrepreneurs, successful, saleswomen specifically, turning around and teaching them how to be successful. So there's a lot of people listening right now that are in that exact boat. What do you do to balance and juggle all of these priorities?
Yeah, I think there's a couple different kind of strategies that I use. And of course, you get better with time and experience, just like anything else. You're not going to be perfect at it right away. But I do think I kind of use the analogy of like picture a juggler, right? At the circus. Some of those balls are rubber and some are glass. And really understanding which balls are glass. Because dropping those can be shattering. It may be irrecoverable. You drop a rubber ball, not so bad. So in your personal life,
A great
and in your
analogy.
which ones are the glass balls? And it's like, when it comes to like big important family milestones or, really big important things for my kids, like that's a glass ball. I can't get that time back. I can't show up for my parents when they've lost a loved one and they're devastated. Like you don't get a redo. So that stuff, you got it. It's like the choice is clear. And then with work, I think it's really important to have be as organized as you can with your time. Like put everything in the calendar, block it out. Even if you need to block out downtime, like this is my 1 hour of me time, whether I meditate, work out, grab a lunch with a friend, put it in the calendar because if it's not in the calendar, it doesn't happen. So ruthless prioritization with time, but then also, just prioritization in general. Not everything is important. I know your companies are going to tell you everything must get done. It's so important. We can't. That's total BS. Find the most important things, like the Gary Keller One Thing book. What are like the top 3 things that must get done today so that the rest of my week goes well and that my month, year, etc. It can be that simple. And if you need help, you can always ask your direct, supervisor, "Hey, help me prioritize this stuff. My plate is so full. I've got all this stuff coming up. I can't work on the weekends. I'm a mom. What must get done?" That they'll help you. So that's huge. Um, what else? And I think again, it kind of comes back to what I said earlier is like, I've had now there's a lot of younger women coming up in this space and I've been able to mentor a lot of them and stuff. And, they're like, well, they get discouraged because again, they don't see a lot of people doing it. Just because you don't see someone in your company that's a working mom juggling it all does not mean it can't be done. Don't let that stop you of like, oh, clearly they're not a company that supports this stuff. Clearly I won't succeed here. This can't be my place. There's no other working moms. I've always been like the token working mom in a lot of places, but you can help then make change. You can be the voice. Like, hey, this mandatory happy hour every Friday, that doesn't exactly work for me. I want to spend that time with my kids. That's not work hours. That's after work hours. And I spoke up because they're not thinking that way, maybe. So you now have a chance to kind of speak up or meetings before 8:30 really are not going to work. I want to be present in the morning, get my kids to school. make the lunches, make the breakfast. I can meet you at 9, but I can't meet with you before 9. Like being that voice is so important, and don't feel like, well, who's going to be that voice for me? You're going to be that voice, and that's okay. You're in that position for a reason. So those little things can really help me um, to balance it all.
No, it's funny you said that because I used to have a Post-it note early on in my career that for myself and only myself that would say, if it's not on my calendar, it doesn't happen. Right. And it's a way to remind myself to put it in my calendar. And then it's more of a way to protect my calendar, right, from things that I shouldn't be focusing on or shouldn't be thinking about or shouldn't be doing. It's like it was my essentially my wall to prevent things that go on my calendar needs to be hyper important and very prioritized and intentional. And now, like, it's I have a display. I'm looking off the screen here, but I literally have one monitor just for my calendar because it's like it's so important to me. And yeah, I mean, and it's like multicolored. I have a calendar with my wife. I have a calendar with my daughter. I have a calendar with, yeah, with my executive team. I have a calendar with like Lexi and I. Like we just have. It's the most important thing. I think to-do lists are jokes. Like it's that I think Apple got it right. Right. I think their to-do list is actually called reminders, and that's how you have to look at it. It's a reminder. But if it's not on the calendar, that's your to-do list, right? That's where it matters most. So I love that you said that. It really hit home. And yeah, it's a matter of priority, really.
And I would just say one other build would be boundaries. Boundaries, boundaries, boundaries. And not everyone believes that they work and that you can use them. And I joke because my husband started his own business, and he's more similar to you, Gabe, where you're all in. This is your be all end all. It's like there's so much at stake. Like it's
Yeah.
me, myself, and I doing all the things. But, I have to kind of remind him, like, for the hour that we have, like, family dinner, can you, like, not take a call then? You can literally say to someone, "Hey, I'm having dinner with my family. I'll call you back in 30 minutes. I'll call you back in an hour." I'm not saying you don't handle it, but that boundary of time, because you can't get those dinners back. And if you're on, same with on vacation. "Hey, man, I'm out of town on vacation. I've got the PTO on my Outlook. Can we touch base next week? Can I call you from the airport on my flight back?" You're not saying like no, you're not like brushing it off, but you can protect your time too,
For sure.
you know? And people really respect that because who hasn't been in that situation? I've never like used a boundary with a boss or someone at work and they've like blown up in my face. They're like, "Oh no, yeah, totally understand. I get it. I respect that. You go do your thing with your family." Like it's always well received. So like use it. That would be my other one.
I love that. And I would also love to know, like, you and I are both handling a lot of partnerships. And I would just like to know, what advice would you give to others to have those strong relationships that you create?
Yeah. It comes down to the people element. Like everyone is a person first. So whether it's a new store opening up and I'm meeting the new buyer, or maybe there's a brand new distributor rep that's just getting in the industry that has to work with me, and they're usually terrified. And I break the ice. I get in the car with them. I'm like, "Listen," I go, "We're gonna have a lot of fun today. I'm gonna to hopefully teach you some things. You're gonna teach me some things, and if we're lucky, we sell some wine too." But it just kind of takes all that angst and like agita out of the room. Um, I think sometimes we take things so seriously, and it's like, especially me in my industry, like we sell wine. Like I'm not doing brain surgery. I'm not putting a rocket into space. Like we can have a little fun with this. We can, enjoy it. Enjoy it. Take a breath. Enjoy it. Get to know people, and you'd be shocked how people open up. And personally, professionally, I always lean with like build that relationship first. And how you can do that is again spending face time with these people. It might look different based on what industry you're in. For me, it's getting in the car and selling with a rep all day, taking them to lunch, showing up at a sales meeting live and in person, and kind of walking the room afterwards and really getting to know everyone. But come from an authentic place, be yourself, ask a ton of questions. I always try to listen more than I talk. You can learn something from everyone. You really can, you know. But you got to pause enough to really listen to what they're saying. So those are some things that have helped me, and that builds trust too. That builds that rapport piece.
Absolutely. Yeah, so, we have clients. We're in the professional service business. And so when it comes to, I always say this to my client success team. I say, guys, we don't have customers, we have clients. And some who are new, they're like, well, is it the same thing? And I'm like, no, it's not the same thing. if you go to a restaurant, a steakhouse, and they cook your steak wrong, and you say, "Hey, excuse me, this is not the right temperature," they replace you with a free steak. Because in that environment, right, the customer's always right. We hear that all the time, and that's true for customers. But for clients, it's not always right. And, building a relationship with you, like you have clients, right? We have clients, lawyers have clients, accountants have clients. So sometimes the clients are not right. And you have to have a strong backbone, right? Especially, again, even more so, I would say, in a male dominated industry. You have to be authoritative in your communication to a client, but it's also sensitive because you don't want to piss them off either, right? You don't want to lose business, but you need to tell it as it is. How do you, again, going back to balancing, how do you balance a client, a relationship, where you need to come in and tell them, hey, what they need to hear, maybe not necessarily what they want to hear. How do you handle that?
Yeah, love that question. That's like an awesome interview question we should use in the future. Just jot it down. Um, I think this comes back to it's almost kind of like when you have to deliver bad news, right? Or God forbid you have to lay someone off, right? It's like I think back to being clear is kind. Like don't BS and like jump around, a million different ways and try to like open up with a weird, story. It's like just be clear. Be clear is to be kind. So I would get right to it and I would say the words in as few as, as succinctly as possible and then just pause, and see how they handle it, and then you can navigate from there. And I think a lot of times, whether it's a tough conversation or difficult news to share, and if people are upset, they truly just kind of want to be heard. So it's okay to have a little bit of that empathy and just hear them out. Let them vent. Let them be frustrated. Let them disagree with you. Let them go off for a little bit and just say, it sounds like you're really frustrated by this, or if I'm hearing you right, like, this is really disappointing. Like, I get it, you know, I understand. However, we still need to do XYZ, or however, that behavior is still unacceptable. You can kind of balance that with that sort of active listening and repeating what they're saying and acknowledging their feelings, yet staying firm. And I think as women, we can kind of get worried and we almost over explain and say too much and keep going and going. Keep it succinct. Say exactly what you need to say as clearly as you can and then pause. And that would be my advice.
I love that. I love that so much. It's so important. Um, Before we let you go, I just got to ask, like, we have a lot of people starting in this space of sales, and you've shared so much wisdom already. But what's maybe one or two just pieces of advice that you would share with someone who maybe just started in a role that ultimately would turn into something and success that you're having down the line? What would you tell those individuals?
Yeah, I would say that, um, even at my level, and I'm sure Gabe and Lexi, you guys can relate. I mean, sales is definitely scary. Like there was never a time where I was just like, I like got this, and I'm just like cruising in and just like crushing it and just like slaying the pitch and like, I mean, that it takes a lot of practice. Like if you're terrified, you're doing it right. Like it doesn't mean, oh, I'm not cut out for sales because this is terrifying. Or somebody chewed my head off and threw me out of the account. I must suck at this. That is literally what it is. Like it's happened to all of us. And the thing is, you take those experiences and you just kind of put it in your toolkit. So it's like, okay, I know how to handle this like belligerent, crazy guy that goes off the handle and throws me out of the store. I've done that before. Okay, I got that. You know what I mean? But I would say, like with sales specifically, for me, what's really helped is do your homework. There's so much like software and, sales reporting data, whatever your platform is. I always am the most prepared going in. I know exactly what that account has sold recently, what brands of mine they bought or maybe stopped buying. I'll always do the report. I'll know what I'm going into. Walk in with about 3 succinct goals you want to like focus on if you can, but have it that prioritized. Um, and then I always have something visual. For me, it's like a bigger iPad, so I've got something to look at. That always helps. I'll like show them something as I'm speaking, or well, what's that technical data about the barrel that was used and the type of oak, and then it's like if you're ever stumped, you sort of have it there. Again, you're sort of prepared. Um, but for me, on the sales piece, it's okay to be scared. It's okay if it feels terrifying. That's literally part of the process. You get better with more and more practice. And a lot of companies will give you like a scripted pitch. And I always say, make it your own, make it your own, because we've all been sold to. And like when you hear that, oh my God, I mean, my blood boils. It's like, because I'm in sales, but it's like no one wants that script, whether you get it on the phone or it's someone door to door sales. And it's just, kind of creepy and kind of makes you icky. Make it your own, make it your own. So I'm prepared. I've got my 3 goals, but then when I walk in, I'm people first. Hey, Mr. or Mr. Whatever. How are you? Great to see you. You know, get to on a personal note. How was the winter break for you? How was Valentine's Day? Did sales pick up? Did the rosés really fly off the shelves for Valentine? Get to know them, talk to them. Everyone lets their guard down, right? I ask a ton of questions and they will reveal so much in their answers that I can tailor my pitch on the fly. It could say, Devin, red blends are like doing so bad. I had to like take 3 or 4 off the shelf. They don't work in this store. Can't stand them, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to pitch them my red blends. I have 2 amazing ones that I love. But you know what? I'm not doing that. It's like
Know your buyer, right? You got to know your buyer.
oh, that might be on my goal sheet, but not anymore. But if I didn't get them to open up and talk about how the weekend went, how the holiday went, what's happening in the store recently, I'm not going to know that really specific little detail that could have make or break my sales presentation. So always listening. You get so many great clues.
Yeah, absolutely. I love listen, I love the scripts, what you're talking about too. I always say, like, I love scripts, but I can't stand being scripted, right?
Yep.
Like, we talk about it in the movie business. Like, Al Pacino, Robert De Niro are great actors, but in reality, all they're doing is reading other people's scripts. I mean, that's what they're doing, right? But they take the script and they turn it into their own and make it. That's where you get a Oscar-winning performance. So scripts are great. Being scripted is not great, and I think that is awesome.
Yep. Yeah.
Absolutely. So how do we get a hold of you? Like, before I ask that, who's the person that you want to talk to? If there's a listener out there that you would love to collaborate with in any way, what does that look like, and who would that individual be? And I'd love to hear about how people can get a hold of you.
Yeah. So I would say on the most basic kind of general area, it would be, anyone new to sales, just starting your career in sales. If you're terrified and scared and oh my God, how do I start? Am I cut out for this? I'd love to speak to that person. I'd love to speak to any mom that's also working any kind of job that's not inside the home, because that's still a full-time job. But anyone kind of managing both, I speak to you. Hopefully I can shed some insight or wisdom there. And then lastly would be anyone specifically in the beverage space, the wine industry. Maybe you own a restaurant or you're a bartender or, you work in a liquor store, you own a liquor store. You're my direct clients and people that I have very intimate relationships with. And I know a lot of you, not all of you, and if I don't know you, I'd love to get to know you, especially if you're in the Buffalo area, because this is home for me. And then in terms of finding me, I'm really active on LinkedIn. I think that's probably the best like professional space to find me. It's just my name, Devan Felano, on LinkedIn. I'm also on socials too, but that's a little bit more personal. If you just like seeing pictures of kids and food and trips, that's kind of my Instagram. But again, it's D Felano. Is my Instagram handle too. So either way.
Well, and speaking of LinkedIn, I know Lexi had a content question for you. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it.
Yeah, for sure. So I know you were telling us a little bit before that you're not huge in the podcast scene. So I'd love to know what encouraged you to get on the show. Do you think it's beneficial? And do you want to be more involved in the content scene?
Yes, I would love to be more involved with any way, shape, or form of podcasting. I think I'm a very active listener of podcasts. So I'm involved that way right now. I have the whole upstate market. So everything down to like the Tappan Zee Bridge is like my world. So I drive a ton. And it used to be this idle time. I'm like, oh my God, I only have 4 hours left. And now I can make that time work for me. So that's where I've had like a love affair with podcasts. So whether I can learn something, I can deep dive down a rabbit hole, or I can just hear a personal story of a guest that's on one, I just like eat them up. But one of my intentions for this year is to be more involved in more of an active role with podcasting. So whether it's I can, be a guest on your show more often, or I can, just be on the other side of it, I think would be really cool. And it's kind of a pipe dream of mine. So yeah, thanks for giving me that first baby step.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, thanks. Welcome. Thank you so much, and welcome to podcasting. We'd love to love that we had you on the show, and we'd love to have you on again. Again, there it is, everyone. Devin, get a hold of her. She's really amazing. love to help you out. And thank you so much for all the words of wisdom and all those golden nuggets. Great analogy. The juggling analogy, I'm taking that one. I'm going to write that one down and take it.
It's not my own, but I use it often. So
Exactly. Well, the
visual person.
inspiration. We won't say, copy and paste. Inspired, right? Exactly. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Devan. We appreciate you. And Lexi, always great to collaborate on the podcast. And to the audience members, keep your ear to the ground for our next podcast in the future. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.